Hello, welcome back to another video. On this topic, we will be talking about video that we did yesterday, which was about Kosovo, Dardania and Skanderbeg. This time will be part 2 and it will be all about Skanderbeg, and how his nationality is Serbian/Slavic, since we are here to the topic. Let's begin. Đurađ Kastriot Skanderbeg is a person very important for the history of resistance to the Ottoman conquerors in the Balkans. It is believed that Đurađ Kastriot was one of the barriers to the rapid penetration of Muslims into the Balkans. However, his importance, as a fighter against the Ottomans, was interpreted tendentiously, as a fighter for the exclusive preservation of the Albanian nation, and his personality was presented as a national Albanian symbol, and a person who significantly contributed to the creation of the Albanian nation, and that he raised a nationwide Albanian uprising against the Turks. Which is a misinterpretation of historical events. New interpretations of the role of Đurađ Kastriot try to put the matter on the right basis and give interpretations that are closer to the historical truth. Swiss scholar Oliver Jens Schmidt interpreted the role of Đurađ Kastriot Skanderbeg, that he was not exclusively an Albanian national hero, questioned Skanderbeg's national Albanian identity, and that Skanderbeg's resistance to the Turks was not a nationwide uprising, but his struggle to restore the fatherland, i.e. the Principality of Ivan Kastrita in the spaces she occupied. The topic that interested me and that was covered in my books is precisely the consideration, but exclusively on the basis of documentary historiographical sources, ethnic identity of Đurađ Kastriot Skanderbeg and Kastriot and their ancestors Masaryk, because it is a topic that has been neglected by our historical science and abused by several national Balkan quasi-scientific historical environments. I also dealt with the topic of discovering the identity of his mother, which Skanderbeg's biographers mention as voice of a Tribalda, behind whose name he hides, Vajislava Branković, daughter of Grigor Branković, older brother of Vuk Branković. There are a number of documentary arguments, which the scientific public has so far not taken into account when interpreting the ethnic identity of Đurađ Kastriot Skanderbeg, and which can lead this issue to the historical truth on the merits and arguments. Certain documentary material from Serbian medieval sources, very important for the analytical approach to this topic, has not been taken into account so far in the settings on the ethnic identity of Kastriot, such as Charter of Emperor Stefan II s with Karanan from 1347, Prastragma from 1349/53, Holy Archangels Chrysostom from 1348/52, then for Masaryka, the immediate ancestors of Kastriot, Janjanska Hronika. And no explanations of the Kahanovsky about the origin of memory musiki and others. Documents and records. Some documents known to the scientific public, as the Dubrovnik Charter to Alexander from 1368, has been misinterpreted, and it is therefore considered that the situation with the topic of Kastriot's ethnic identity has remained vague and insufficiently documented and adequately interpreted. The conclusion about the Serbian Slavic origin of the older generations is confirmed by a series of arguments obtained by researching the national identity of Kastriots, their Orthodox faith with family fame, characteristic specificity for Serbian identity, found by historian I. Jastrabov, their status as Serbian rulers, who in Dusan's time, only Serbs, Greeks, or Germans could have close family ties with Serbian noble houses, Hilander monks from their immediate family, and even genealogies with Serbian origins of the present Kastriots in Italy and Spain, as well as other arguments, which are the confirmation of this national identity. The attitudes of Albanian historians that Đurađ Kastriot is an ethnic Albanian and that Kastriots are ethnic Albanians are not based on arguments, because there is no documentary evidence for that. Even Đurađ Kastriot himself did not declare that he was Albanian, that he was from Epirus, and Epirus was not an ethnic destination, but in his time it was an area inhabited by Greeks and Slavic immigrants, as well as Albanian immigrants. Albanian historians deny the origin of Đurađ castriot in Branil, and also do not consider the origin of castriot as a branch of the Masaryk family. So far, they have not provided any substantiated evidence for the Albanian ethnic origin of the Castriots, except that the Castriots lived at one time in the Albanian ethnic areas, where they had their principalities, and Ivan the father and Đurađ Castriot's son, in the late 14th and early 15th and during the second half 15th century, which certainly cannot be a proof of their exclusively Albanian ethnicity, which is advocated by Albanian historians. Serbian documentary sources about Castriot's ancestors are a priori rejected, or not considered at all. It can be noticed that the turning points on this issue were the first decades of the 20th century, when most historians considered Đurađ castriot to be of Serbian ethnic origin, and the years after this period when, according to the Austro-German historical setting, it was Albanian origin, which was later taken over by Albanian historians. Political aspects had an impact on the discussions on the genealogy of Castriot and the descendants of Đurađ castriot Skanderbeg in Italy and Spain, improving the direct lines of his descendants, because the current constitution of Albania left the possibility of returning the monarchy, and dynastic ambitions became more vampiric. And discussions on the direct heirs of Đurađ castriot Skanderbeg. And also as well all can tell the genetics of Skanderbeg considers him almost 90 and Slavic, because he has blue eyes and blonde hair. Well, thank you for watching, my friends. This is part 2. And part 3 will come soon.